Well, I'm looking at my links at this point, and I'm thinking that I would really like to give them a custom color, and I can do that with CSS. So I'll go over here to my CSS panel and create a new rule. It pops open a dialog box, and I get to choose from a number of different selectors. I'm going to choose my compound, and in this little drop down I can see that I have a number of options. I can choose A-link, A-visited, A-hover, and A-active. We'll start off with A-link, which gives me just the basic link color on the page. So I'll click OK, and now in my type category I'll choose whatever color I want. I'll click on that, and let's say I want green for now, and I'll click OK. And I can see the results of my work right away. I can see that my links have turned green in here, and it's also green in my CSS panel. Now I'll move on to the next setting. I'll add another CSS rule. Once again, go to Compound. Now I will go to Visited and click OK. This will be the color of any links that have already been visited. So I'll choose kind of a been there, done that gray, and I'll click OK. Now you can't see that on the page. You'd only see that in the browser once it's been visited. Let's carry on and do the next one. Create another CSS rule, go to Compound, choose a hover. And this is basically deciding what color you want the rollover color to be. I'll click OK and choose a color. I think I'll make that kind of a bright orange, and I'll click OK. And finally, my last one, create a new rule, go back to Compound, and make it active. Now the active is basically the on mouse down color. So I'm going to make that black. So when you press down on the link, it'll turn black. I'll click OK. And now you can see that I have an A-link, A-visited, A-hover, and A-active. I'll click on each one. That's green, that's gray, that's orange, and that's black. Let's test this in a browser. Preview in Firefox. And you can see a number of my links are already gray because I've visited them already. So that's actually a pretty good sign. When I roll over, they turn orange. And when I press down, they turn black. That's the active. So I'm pretty satisfied with my results. And I'm going to close my browser window and return to Dreamweaver. It's a good time to save my work. File save. Now that I've customized all my links, I am ready to put in that background image and replace that light gray color with that neat map, which is called map.gif. Now, in order to do that, I will go over to my CSS panel. I'll move this out of the way for a moment. And that can be found in my body style. So I'm going to double click on body, and I'll go to the background. And right here you can see where I have set it previously to gray. Well, what I'm going to do now is instead I'm going to browse for the image called map.gif. And I'll navigate to my LOTR folder. It pretty much found it automatically for me. I'll find the file called map.gif. I will choose it, and I'll click OK. And now what happens is the map appears as the background. And as I stretch my browser window, the map continues to tile across the background. And as I scroll down, it also tiles down the page as well. So that really transforms the page quite a bit, letting go of that dull gray background, replacing it with a nice graphic image. I'm going to close my browser window and return to my working page in Dreamweaver. I'm going to move this down a little bit so I can see my properties, really see my properties, and I'm going to study all my choices. Starting off with my body, I can see that my background color is gray, the text color is red, there's my font, and right here it's got a background image. Now, since I added the background image, I really no longer need this background color. So what I can do is select this and hit the trash can. and now that disappears, leaving only the property that represents the addition of my map. So no reason to have additional code that's not necessary. I'll go down to my wrapper and take a look at the properties that are associated with that. Background color of yellow, clearly that's the wrapper color. I've got my margins and my margin left, margin right, margin top, margin bottom. I've got some padding set in there, and I've got my width based on 900. Now at this point I also want to mention that there are times you might want to cater to a more conservative audience. Maybe people in schools have older equipment, and instead of setting to a 960 wide width page, you may want to consider going with a 760 width page, which is also still somewhat common when catering to a lower common denominator. How would I do that? Well, simply I could take this 900 and change it to 7, and what that does is it narrows my page, and this basically assures me that my viewers with a lower resolution won't have to scroll sideways. Let's see what this looks like. Preview in Firefox, and now the page is more narrow, and it still is very well designed, and it looks just fine. So ultimately it's your choice. Consider your audience, whether you want to go with a 760 wide page or a 960. I just changed mine to 760. I'll go back to my Dreamweaver document, and we'll take a look at our H1, H2, and H3. You'll notice I've got my color, my font size set in percentages, and my margin and padding has been both set to 0. And likewise H2 is similar and H3 is similar. Moving on down, we've just recently set our links, our A link, A visited, A hover, and A active. So at this point I'm quite satisfied with the way my page looks, and I'll give it one final test, preview it in browser, look for any errors and any bad formatting that you need to double check, and at this point you would be ready to upload your page to the server for the world to see. I'll close my browser window and return to Dreamweaver, save your work, and you're done for this section.